Much of the ACC went as expected in 2024. We did have some surprises, some teams that were better than we expected, and some teams that were worse than we expected. One team in particular, and I think you all know who that is. But we're going to look back at our predictions now, and we'll start with the teams at the top. And I did include Notre Dame in this video just because I wanted to talk about the team that is playing in the national championship, obviously. And we don't have a conference to put them in terms of a video. But yeah, Notre Dame sitting right there at 11-1. SMU was 11-1. Again, regular season. Miami 10-2. Clemson 9-3. Syracuse 9-3. And Duke 9-3. Duke a bit of a surprise in terms of where Vegas had these teams. I don't have Notre Dame on my list here since they weren't in the conference. But SMU, their over-under win total was 7.5. So they beat that by a lot. Clemson and Miami was not. Both of those teams were 9.5. Let's see, who else did we have here? We have Syracuse and Duke. So where did Vegas expect Syracuse and Duke to finish? Well, Syracuse, their over/under total was at 7.5. So actually the same as SMU. And then Duke was 6.5, which I thought was a little bit surprising preseason. Duke, I didn't think was going to be that good, but I guess I just missed the mark with this Duke team. So how about projected records? We had 9-3 for Notre Dame. A lot of teams on Notre Dame's schedule turn out to be not as good as expected in the preseason, so maybe that's why that projection was as low as it was. I really don't know. SMU is projected to go 7-5. Miami 8-4, Clemson 8-4, Syracuse 7-5, and Duke 6-6. So the projections were not great. They were definitely on the lower end, and again, our projections are very conservative. It's with a formula where we average all these games out, so that's to be expected. But yeah, missed SMU by 4 games. That was the biggest miss here. But my predictions, I'd say, were a little bit better. I had Notre Dame at 10-2, had SMU at 9-3, and I could see, like, when I was looking at this preseason, I was thinking, man, SMU could go 10-2 or 11-1. I talked myself out of it. I thought maybe coming into a power conference would be a little too much for them to make that type of run. Obviously, I was wrong, and the ACC obviously was not very good. And they had a very favorable schedule. So yeah, I was looking at 10-2 potentially for them, and that would have been beating BYU. I thought I was counting that as a win. Of course, they lost that game. So if you had told me they were going to lose to BYU, I definitely would not have expected 11-1, but they did just that. Miami exactly where I expected, 10-2. Clemson 11-1. I thought they would be a little bit better. I had them beating South Carolina at the end of the season. I did have them losing to Georgia, so I actually had them going undefeated in the ACC, but they did lose that game to Louisville. So Syracuse 7-5. I was a little bit low on them, and then Duke I had at 4-8, so they were definitely a surprise to me. How about our simulations first? On NCAA Football 14 with our updated rosters and ratings. Notre Dame 10-2 there. SMU was pretty good, 9-3. Miami right on the money at 10-2. Clemson on the money at 9-3, and they actually had Syracuse go 12-0. The game loved Syracuse for whatever reason, and was, kind of saw the Duke thing coming. Had them at 8-4. And then the new college football 25, they had Notre Dame also at 10-2, SMU also at 9-3, Miami just 5-7. This game did not like the Hurricanes for whatever reason. I had Clemson 12-0, even beating Georgia. Syracuse at 7-5 and Duke at 5-7. So those are the top teams. Let's go to the next set of teams. We got Louisville, Georgia Tech, Boston College, Pitt, Virginia Tech, and NC State. Louisville at the top of this list going 8-4. Vegas had their over/under at 8.5, so they were actually under that. Then we had Georgia Tech, Boston College, and Pitt. Georgia Tech's over/under was at 5.5. Boston College 4.5, and Pittsburgh 5.5. So all of these teams actually did better than expected, at least according to Vegas. Virginia Tech and NC State both going 6-6. Remember Virginia Tech? That was a team a lot of people were high on in the preseason. Their over/under totals at 7.5. So they actually finished under. Most people thought this is a team that would definitely go over. And NC State, their over/under was 8.5. So they were a big-time disappointment according to preseason predictions and expectations. So let's get to our projected records. Louisville 8-4, Georgia Tech 6-6, Boston College 6-6, Pitt 6-6, Virginia Tech right on the money 6-6, and NC State at 8-4. So all but one of these teams within one game, NC State within 2, projections turned out to be very accurate here with this set of teams. How about my predictions? Well, I had Louisville going 8-4. I did have Georgia Tech going 6-6, so missed that one by a game. Boston College I had at 5-7. Pittsburgh was a team I thought was going to be terrible this year. I think Eli Holstein was the difference. If I had known he was going to be as good as he was, I probably would have gone a little bit higher, at least maybe a 5-7. And one of the things about these coaches that have been around a long time, that are proven coaches, when they have a bad year, they usually bounce back. And that's something I've got to learn for myself, because you look at a team having a bad year and you look at the roster, they didn't really make a lot of changes, not really improving that much, and you think they're going to be similar. But no, these good coaches, they can usually turn teams around. And that's what we saw with Pittsburgh this season. We saw it with Illinois there as well out of the Big Ten. So Virginia Tech 9-3 and NC State 9-3. So I missed the mark on both of them by 3 games. How about the simulations? Louisville 9-3 on the college ball revamped. Georgia Tech 4-8. Boston College 5-7. Pittsburgh 3-9. Virginia Tech 6-6. NC State 5-7. So I did get Virginia Tech right, but not great, but not horrible. I would say. And the biggest miss probably Pittsburgh. And then college football 25, missed Louisville by 2. Georgia Tech missed by 1. Boston College right on the money. Pitt missed by 2. Virginia Tech missed by 2. And NC State, that game did have them go. Both games were not high on NC State, even though the preseason expectations were higher. The video games did not like the Wolfpack. So that's interesting. Now let's go to our final teams. North Carolina, Cal, Virginia, Wake Forest, Stanford, and Florida State. North Carolina 6-6, Cal 6-6. What did Vegas think about these teams? Well, North Carolina's over/under was at 7.5. Cal's was 6.5. So I didn't realize they were expected to do that well. Virginia at 5-7, their over/under was 4.5. Wake Forest, their over/under was 4.5 as well. Stanford 3-9, their over/under was 3.5, and then finally Florida State, their over/under was 9.5. Have we ever seen a team take that big of a nosedive? I don't know. I don't know if we have. This was definitely something crazy. And remember, that's how the season started, with Florida State on week 0 in Ireland losing to Georgia Tech, and they just had a terrible, terrible season. They're doing a lot in the transfer portal. I expect them to bounce back next year. How much will they bounce back? I don't know. So let's go to the projections. North Carolina is projected to go 8-4. Cal 6-6. Virginia 6-6. Wake Forest 6-6. Stanford 6-6. And then Florida State projected at 8-4, which a lot of people I'm sure thought that was low, and it turned out to be 6 games too high, as crazy as that is. Predictions. North Carolina had at 9-3, had a favorable schedule. They couldn't get it done. Cal 5-7. Virginia 5-7. Really close on them. I had Wake Forest winning a couple more games, but they were a big disappointment. Missed Stanford by 1, and then I did have Florida State going 9-3. And so again, some people thought that was too low. They thought I was underrating Florida State, but I was way too high, as it turns out. So how about NCAA Football 14 with our rosters, our ratings? They had North Carolina at 9-3, Cal 8-4, Virginia 5-7, Wake Forest 4-8. How about that? Virginia, Wake Forest, and Stanford all exactly right. Florida State predicted to go 10-2. And then on college football 25, they also like North Carolina. They had them at 10-2. They did not do very well, obviously. Cal 5-7, Virginia 5-7, Wake Forest 9-3. This game loved the Demon Deacons. Stanford 7-5, and then Florida State at 8-4. So I think we've learned, as we have now completed the Power 4 teams here, that college football 25 just was not very good at predicting this season. I think the older game with our ratings and our rosters definitely was more accurate, but it wasn't great either. So these are this is a look at all of the Power 4 teams. We've done the SEC, the Big 10, the Big 12, and now the ACC. If you missed those videos, you can go back and watch them and see how our preseason predictions were. Overall, I'm pretty happy with the predictions. I'd say there's probably like 10 teams that I was just way off on, and then the rest of the teams, I would say most of those teams I was within a game or two, and these teams were about what I expected. But yeah, there were probably about 10 teams that just shocked me, either being way better than I thought or way worse than I thought. But I do think that most of those teams surprised everyone. I don't know if there's really a team that surprised me that maybe there were a lot of people expecting to do what they did. So yeah, this is the ACC wrap up. Let's hear your thoughts. How did you do on your predictions? Let me know down in the comments below.